Hi everyone, I wanted to put a video together for the knowledge check number 3, part 2. As actually a good number of you guys did okay, but there's a good portion of you guys that are still kind of struggling with this. So let's look at this and let's see how it goes. Right? Let's do these problems together. Now the trick is I would try to do these problems on your own first, then look at section 1.6 and do these problems and do the other problems that are similar to these because again, when you guys have to be able to look at an equation and then know how to execute. All right, and that's the hard part about this whole thing. There's a bunch of lessons all rolled into one. Look at this number of standards that we are addressing up here, right? And the in this portion right here. So we're addressing a lot of standards. We're addressing a lot of things all at one time, and it's kind of just to help you just understand that, just help you understand when to apply different rules, right? Letter A of number 1, here we go. We have 5x cubed plus 30x squared plus 45 equals 0. 45x equals 0. I need to look at this and make sure that I factor out the x. And so what ends up happening is this 5x squared plus 30x plus 45. Actually, I could also factor out the 5 as well. Okay, I can factor out the 5x. So it becomes x squared plus 6x plus 9. And then once you factor this right here, it becomes 5x, and then x plus 3 and x plus 3 if you do the x method. Okay, make sure you make each factor equal to 0. Remember that zero product property, all right? And so what ends up happening is x is equal to 0, x is equal to -3, and x is equal to -3. And notice that -3 is a double root, all right? So it's a double root, right? Remember thinking about the graph, right? Remember we talked about this in the graphing polynomials. It's going to hit the x-axis, but it's not going to cross over the x-axis. It's going to skip back up or skip back down depending on where it originated, all right? Now, letter B is x to the fourth power minus 81 is equal to 0. I'm okay with you guys adding the 81. That's fine. If it's a binomial like this, there's only two terms. I go ahead and do that. That's fine. And then you get the fourth root of both sides here. So x is equal to, I believe, 3 plus or minus 3. All right. Okay. But I'm okay with that for now. However, I'm hoping that you guys recognize that this is a difference of cubes, where it's sorry, difference of squares, where it's x squared minus 9 and x squared plus 9. Okay. And then you realize that this is a difference of squares. So this is x minus 3. This is x plus 3. The last one, you just keep it as is. All right, so this ends up being what? X minus 3 is equal to 0. X plus 3 is equal to 0. So x is equal to 3 and -3, right? And then there's also the x squared plus 9 that equals 0. So you subtract 9 to both sides. So x squared is equal to -9. You square root both sides. X is equal to just 3i, plus or minus 3i. And remember this, remember that we're talking about polynomials and we're talking about how many possible roots there are, right? In each graph, right? Or each equation, right? Well, notice that the highest power is 4. So that's why we have the, or let's see here, we have the 2 here, and then we have the 2 here, the plus 3i and the -3i. So by doing this portion right here, you wouldn't be able to get the I portion. So that's why it's probably better. It's always better to factor if you can. All right. For this test, if you just put plus or minus 3, I will give you the points. All right. But just recognize that from here on out. All right. Number 2, I was hoping that you guys would recognize that there's a certain pattern for A, B, and C. All right. Okay. A is, right, they're all going to be substitutes. You're using that Z is equal to, and notice that this is twice the amount as the middle power. So you would use a substitution method. So for letter A, it would be what? Z is equal to x squared. So you have x squared minus 4 times x squared plus 3. Then you replace the z with the x squared, right? And then you have to factor this out. So it will be 3 and -4. So it'll be -3 and -1, right? So it would be what? Z minus 3 and Z minus 1. Well, you guys got this part down. But then make sure you replace the what Z with X squared, because remember, we're trying to solve for X and not Z. So this becomes X squared minus 3 is equal to 0, and X squared minus 1 is equal to 0. You add 3 to both sides. X squared is equal to 3. You get the square root of both sides. X is equal to plus or minus radical 3. You add 1 here. X squared is equal to 1. You square root both sides. X is equal to plus or minus 1. Why is it just 1? Because radical 1 is 1. All right, so those, and look at this right here. There's 4 solutions right there. So you got 4 solutions right here. Plus or minus radical 3 and plus or minus 1. All right. No, letter B is a little bit more difficult because it's such a high power, and the I don't know, to get 6 solutions out of this is kind of difficult. What I was looking for though was the execution of the Z portion. So Z is equal to X to the 3rd power. So this is what X cubed squared plus 3X cubed plus 2 is equal to 0. So that's Z is squared plus 3Z plus 2 is equal to 0. If you did this correctly, this is, if you factor it, it is 2 and 3. So it would be 1 and 2. So it'd be Z plus 1 and Z plus 2 equals 0. Then you convert the Z's into the X cubed. So it's X cubed plus 1 is equal to 0. And X cubed plus 2 is equal to 0. You guys see that? I replace the X cubed back into the Z, and then I'm solving it. So you subtract the 1 here. And also, this is the difference of cubes, if you notice that. All right. Oh, sorry, not the difference, the sum of cubes. So you could get more answers, but for this test only, I'm just going to keep it like this. Just keep it simple, where it's -1. Get the cube root of both sides here. And X is equal to the cube root of -1, which is just -1, right? Because -1 times -1 times -1 is negative. It's not plus or minus with the cube root, right? And then you subtract the 2 here. The X cubed is equal to -2. Get the cube root of both sides here. So X is equal to the cube root of -2. All right, remember that the imaginary number doesn't come into play here because it's an odd power, or it's an odd radical. All right, so if you got these 2 answers here, I'm okay with that. There are other answers, but it does take a little bit more time. But for this time around, I'm just looking for this portion right here, the execution of your substitution. All right, then later on you will get to see the other portion. All right, and letter C is 2x plus 9 radical x equals 5. All right, you subtract the 5 first, right? And then becomes what? 2x is equal to, 2x plus 9 radical x minus 5 is equal to 0. Notice that this is to the 1/2 power, so it's 2x plus 9x to the 1/2 power minus 5 is equal to 0. Z is equal to x to the 1/2 power. Remember, this is half of whatever this power is. This is the first power. So this ends up being 2, and then x to the 1/2 power squared plus 9, and then x to the 1/2 power minus 5 is equal to 0. Replace that, 2z squared plus 9z minus 5 is equal to 0. So you end up being what? -10 and 9. And so what ends up happening is 2 numbers that multiply to -10 and add up to 9. So that would be what? 10 and -1. 10 times -1 is -10. 10 plus -1. And then you put the 2 above. So this would be 1/5. So it'll be z plus 5. And then 2z minus 1. right? And then you replace that with what? The radical. So it will be x to the 1/2 power plus 5, and then 2x to the 1/2 power minus 1. Make it equal to 0. So you have the radical x plus 5 is equal to 0, right? Because radical and the 1/2 power are the same thing. So subtract the 5. Radical x is equal to -5, right? And then square both sides here. So x is equal to 25 here, right? And then here is what? 2x squared to the 1/2 power minus 1 is equal to 0. Add 1. 2x to the 1/2 power is equal to 1. Divide by 2, right? So what? X, or radical x, is equal to 1 over 2. Square both sides here. X is equal to 1 over 4. So these are your answers for that. All right. As far as the extraneous solutions are concerned, as far as the extraneous solutions are concerned, yeah, I mean, plug them in. But right now I'm more focused on the algebra portion than I am in the answer. So yeah. All right. Number 3 here. All right, number 3. Second. All right, number 3 is letter A. You have the 4 radical x minus 3 is equal to 0. Add 3 to both. So this is probably the easiest problem in the test. On the test, you could just divide it by 4 if you want. So radical x is equal to 3 over 4. Square both sides here. And so x is equal to 9 over 16. Letter B. A lot of you guys just squared both sides right away. But remember, when you have two radicals here, all right, you need to move one of the radicals to the other side. So is radical x equals 10 minus radical x minus 20, and then square both sides. Please do that. Make sure you do that. So it becomes x is equal to, and then 10 minus x minus 20, and 10 minus radical x minus 20. So a lot of you guys are kind of skipping steps here, but make sure you finish this off. X is equal to 100 minus 10 radical x minus 20 minus 10 radical x minus 20 plus x minus 20. Because if I multiply these two, the minus and the minus become a plus, and it becomes radical x minus 20 squared, which is just x minus 20. Okay. So if you combine like terms here, I could get rid of these x's right here. All right, and then I could combine this term with 100 with 20, so that's 80 minus 20 radical x minus 20 equals 0. I'm going to subtract the 80. This becomes, do it right here, negative 80 is equal to 20 radical x minus 20, all right, or negative 20. And I'm going to divide the negative 20 to both sides. That becomes 4 is equal to radical x minus 20. Square both sides. That's 16 is equal to x minus 20. Add 20 to both sides. So x is equal to 36. All right. The letter C here, let's do it up top. It is x plus 2 to the 2/3 power is equal to 9. I'm going to multiply the 3 over 2 power to both sides. Okay, so that undoes these exponents to be x plus 2 is equal to 9 to the third power, I believe, is 9 to the third power. 729. So you're getting the square root of 729. Look at that. The square root of 729 is 27. So subtract the 2. X is equal to 25. That's it. Okay. Let's go with okay, now number 4. These are the rational problems here. All right. A lot of you guys had trouble with these denominators. Let's try to fix this. Okay, so let's do letter A. Letter A is -3 over x plus 3 plus 4x is equal to x over x plus 3. All right. Common denominator. So all I have to do is just multiply this by x plus 3. So it becomes -3 over x plus 3 plus 4x squared plus 12x over x plus 3 is equal to x over x plus 3. Now remember what I said about the denominator. Once it's all equal, you can kind of just focus on the numerator. So it becomes -3 plus 4x squared plus 12x equals x. And then notice that there's a quadratic, so you make everything equal to 0. So you subtract the x to both sides. So it becomes 4x squared. I'm going to put it in descending order. Plus 11x minus 3 is equal to 0. Now, a lot of you guys made mistakes on factoring this. All right. This is -12 and this is 11. So two numbers that multiply into the -12, and add up to the 11 would be what? 12 and -1. Correct? Because 12 times -1 is -12. 12 plus -1 is 11. But what we forgot is, again, this 4 goes above this here. So it should be 1 over 3 when you reduce this, and this just stays the same. So what happens? This is x plus 3, and this is what? 4x minus 1 is equal to 0. All right? So you make x plus 3 is equal to 0, and you make 4x minus 1 is equal to 0. X is equal to -3, and x is equal to 1 over 4. All right? So that is your solution. I believe one of them is extraneous here. All right. I'm not 100% sure, but if you just did this, you'd have gotten the credit. Letter B is 2x plus 2 over x plus 3 is equal to x. So multiply this side here by x plus 3 over x plus 3. And becomes 2x and x plus 3 plus 2 is equal to, this is all over x plus 3, all over x plus 3, equals x times x plus 3, right? Because we need a common denominator here as well. Once we do this, we can just focus on the numerator. We could ignore the denominator, so it would be what? 2x, x plus 3 plus 2 is equal to x times x plus 3. Distribute. So it would be 2x squared plus 6x plus 2 is equal to x squared plus 3x. And then, oh yeah, come on in real quick. Oh, you need a key? Yeah. Thank you. No, I'm just doing a recording. So you'll be forever immortalized in Chase videos. Thank you. Thanks for coming all this way. I could always go to YouTube. It's okay. So thanks. Yeah. And then subtract the x squared. Subtract the 3x. What happens? This becomes x squared plus 3x plus 2 is equal to 0. Then factor this out. This becomes x plus 2, x plus 1. Make it x is equal to -2, and x is equal to -1. Okay? Again, this is not that bad, I'm hoping. Okay, I'm hoping that this is, you guys are just kind of, I feel like isn't as bad when you guys watch it. You just have to know what to do in different situations. All right. Here we go. So number five was kind of a tricky one because absolute value is always tricky. But remember, you have to have two different equations. X plus 1 equals x squared minus 5. And then x plus 1 is equal to negative, remember, x squared minus 5. All right? Give me a second here. All right, so now we want to do is let's focus on the first one. We subtract the x, we subtract the 1, so it becomes x squared minus x minus 6 here equals 0. We factor this out here, and what happens, this is what, negative 6 and negative 1. So it'll be negative 3 and positive 2, I believe. So it'll be x minus 3, x plus 2, and x is equal to 3 and negative 2. I believe that's, a lot of you guys got that one, right? Okay. This one, though, is a little bit trickier because it's not factorable. So you have the x plus 1 is equal to negative x squared plus 5. Remember, I want this leading coefficient to be positive, so I'm going to add the x squared to both sides. I'm going to subtract the 5. So it becomes what? X squared plus x minus 4 is equal to 0. Now, this is not factorable, so what you have to do now is use the quadratic formula, negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Okay, so a is 1, b is 1, c is negative 4. So a is negative 1 plus or minus 1 squared minus 4 times 1 times negative 4 all over 2 times 1. This becomes negative 1 plus or minus. This is 1 plus 16 all over 2, which is, final answer is negative 1 plus or minus radical 17 over 2. Okay, and this is going to be, so those are two answers right there. All right. Cool. And number 6, this was a difficult one. Remember, this was example, I think 6 on that one page. Remember, it was 480 over x minus $4.80, and then x plus 5 equals 480. I look at it this way again. It would have been the original, like let's just say, like this is the original price times the number of members equals total cost, right? Or sorry, not original price, price per person, right? Equals total cost, right? So you're doing it, you're applying it here, right? 480, right? Over X, X is the number of people. So that'll give us the original price. Remember, it goes down $4.80 when 5 people are added. Okay. So what ends up happening is we get the common denominator 480 over minus $4.80x all over x, and x plus 5 is equal to 480. And then you multiply both out. So it'll be 480 minus $4.80x, x plus 5 all over x is equal to 480. Multiply both sides by x, right? So that equals what? 480 minus $4.80x, x plus 5 equals 480x. Then be 480x plus, what's 480 times 5? It's 2,400 minus $4.80x squared minus 4.8 times 5 is 24 equals 480x. And then I subtract the 480x to both sides, right? Give me a second. Did I do something wrong? It's 24. So it's 24x here. Okay. And then it would be what? Negative 480x squared minus 24x plus 2400 equals 0. All right. And then, give me a second. And then I factor out the negative $4.80. Get x squared 24 divided by, can you read the room? And then minus 5x plus 2400 divided by $4.80. It's 500 equals 0. And then this doesn't have an x, so you kind of could ignore that. This is, factor this out. This is 500 and negative 5, right? So it would be negative 25. No, it would be 25 and negative 20. No. It would be negative 20. Wait, sorry. I made a mistake here. I factor out the negative, and then this should be, hold on a second. If I factor the negative, this should be a positive, this should be a negative. So it should be negative 500 and positive 5. So then this is what? 25. So 25 times negative 20 is 500. 25 plus negative 20 is 5. So we x plus 25, x plus minus 20 is equal to 0. You make both equal to 0. So x is equal to negative 25 and x is equal to 20. But you take this one because it's a positive answer. All right. Hopefully that helps. That was the whole test. Thank you. Bye.